What's up, guys? It's your boys Taylor and Taylor coming back at you with another episode of the Empirical Scouting Podcast. NFL decorations are officially set, so it's finally time for us to do what we love to do best and dive deeper into this 2024 NFL draft class. What do you have to say about it, Taylor?
I'm excited. Just for some context for people that are going to be newer or listening to us for the first time, we are both named Taylor. About this time last year, I started posting a bunch of the reports I had done on Reddit, and it gained some traction. Nothing crazy, but just by having some spare time, I decided to go through and I did the whole class last year in a pretty thorough way. And this year we're looking on trying to build on that, keep going with it, and just being draft fans. We're talking about quarterbacks today. Quarterbacks are the headliners of this class for sure. And I know there's going to be a lot of opinions about all of these guys. There's going to be very different orders for everybody, I feel like.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I know you're already starting to waver on an opinion as well. I'm sure we'll get to soon. So we'll start it off first off with USC quarterback Caleb Williams. Just for some background information. Consensus number 2 quarterback in the 2021 class, which is kind of crazy to think about, but it was Quinn Ewers who was ahead of him, and number 7 overall in the class. Got to start at OU, replaced Spencer Rattler during all that, like whatever was going on over in Oklahoma. Then dipped out of town with Lincoln Riley and headed to USC. Last year he threw for over 3,600 yards with 30 touchdowns and only 5 interceptions, adding 136 yards on the ground and 11 touchdowns. So pretty impressive stats, even though it seemed like a pretty disappointing season, if I should say so myself. He's 6'1", 215 pounds, at least what's listed on the USC website. And if I'm correct, he's going to be just under 23 week one of the 2024 NFL season. The consensus number 1 overall pick in this upcoming draft by most experts. Let me hear your thoughts.
Yeah. So basically, Caleb is, special in so many ways, and we can all see that very clearly on the field. He's got an incredibly unique playmaking style that very few quarterbacks are able to pull off, even at the college level, let alone the NFL level. Now, that said, it does get him into some trouble. We've seen that this year. Now, I'm still pretty high on Caleb overall. I don't think he's a generational guy, the way he's sometimes labeled. Recently there was a clip of Rick Spielman, the old Vikings general manager, that went viral from his podcast. The clip was actually from a few months ago, like I want to say early September, mid-September, where Rick basically says he's taking Caleb as a prospect over everyone but maybe Luck, I want to say, is what his opinion was. Like he was over, it was over Peyton Manning, it was over Trevor Lawrence, it was everybody. And it was even over Elway, I want to say.
Interesting.
Something like that. Like it was,
yeah.
I can't remember who exactly like he put above Caleb, but it was like one name of the last like 50 years. And I'm just not there. And I honestly think if you ask Spielman today, he's not going to have that opinion anymore. I think that was a kind of prisoner of the moment type of thing, because it was before like a lot of the bad games Caleb had this year. But you can see kind of what I've got so far for him on the screen. The big thing with him is his arm. He's got crazy arm elasticity. I have no idea if he has a baseball background from before college, but as a baseball guy, like the way he throws, it's unique for a quarterback. Like he whips the ball sidearmed, like 3/4 over the top. Like it's a shortstop type of thing, not to be too cliched, but like you don't see a lot of quarterbacks that can do that right now.
No, and that's what's special about him. I mean, it's the whole Mahomes, comp. I mean, something that Stafford actually mastered, I think, in my opinion, before even Mahomes. It's just
Stafford's a good example, yeah.
being able to throw at different angles. It's an underrated thing for quarterbacks, I believe, because every defensive lineman knows if they have to go through their whole normal motion, sometimes it's not going to work. And you see right there, that little sidearm flick. It's just something that quarterbacks need to have, especially nowadays with such athletic defenders. That you need to be able to counter athleticism and the knowledge that defenders have nowadays with being able to throw at different angles. That's just going to throw you off.
Yeah, I mean, it's more than even the quick flicks. And we're coming up on the red zone, but it's still like he's throwing this from the 35, and that was just a quick flick. Like that was not this guy's loading up, setting his feet or anything like that. Like he's under pressure, and he literally, I mean, he spins number one, which is crazy, and then immediately just throws it like flat-footed
with another defender right.
Like yeah, like that's not normal. Like I can't emphasize that enough. So, like for all the negatives that Caleb comes with, that's a huge, huge positive to work with. Truthfully.
And you mentioned the negative. The one negative that I wanted to mention, I believe you have it listed on your sheet as well. I called it a superstar complex. You call it hero ball. Same situation. To me, and it could be partially due to the defenses he's been dealing with on his own team, because he knows he needs to make up for the lack of defense that Oklahoma had and now USC has. And he tends to want to push balls downfield. He'll hold on to balls longer, trying to find that extra play instead of dumping it off into the flat or pulling it down and running. And he tends to just sometimes, like backyard football, like exactly the way you have written, is exactly how I view it. Is he tries to just run around, and make that hero play instead of just either get rid of the ball, dump it off to a safe, flat or crossing route for a 3-yard gain. He doesn't want a 3 or 4-yard gain. He doesn't want a 0-yard gain. He doesn't want to throw the ball away. He wants the big home run play. And now I'll give him some credit because obviously the defenses haven't been good for him. So he knows he needs to be the one to score. Like it's all on him to win the game. He can't count on the defense. He can barely count on the offensive line. He has weapons around him, but he has to get him the ball. And I think that pressure, might have to do a little bit with it.
So, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you. You can see one example here from Washington. And then let me see if I can pull up another one I have going on. But, he does have that tendency to want to hold on to the ball to try to make these crazy plays, highlight reel plays happen. And, when it works, it's awesome. It's amazing. Like he had 16 fumbles this past year, and he's got 33 career fumbles. That's a lot, and it's partly because of the hero ball that he tries to play. And I'm hoping that cuts down at the next level. Truthfully, like you said, the defense was a big issue for them. I mean, that defense let up 30, 40 plus points, like teams like San Jose State and stuff. So yeah, like there was a lot that was on his shoulders even. Also,
you got to think being the current Heisman winner, already consensus number 1 overall pick, 2 years ago. Everyone's been looking for him. There's a lot of pressure on him to perform. And at the end of the day, he's still a 21, 22-year-old kid. Like, that's a lot of pressure for anyone. I don't care who you are. So I don't personally put it on him too much where he's only going to do this in the NFL, because we don't know that. We have to see it. I want to see him with a solid defense. And if he does end up going to the Bears, if that defense performs like it did that, after the bye week, coming down the stretch of the end of the season, like he'll have a defense behind him where he doesn't have to score a touchdown like he did at USC and even Oklahoma.
Right. And, just kind of putting a bow on everything here, like this is some stats that have been pulled and aggregated by me. You can see like he's pretty above average in every, area of the field compared to his peers. He's near the top for a lot of, statistics. But, one thing to point out is that he technically caused almost a third of his own pressures this year. And he's the highest in the draft class for that statistic by far. Like by far.
And do you want to
Um,
explain exactly what you meant by cause his own pressures?
yeah, so just kind of how we're talking about how he, holds onto the ball, kind of plays your ball, looks for the big play. Like him holding on to the ball too long, eventually the offensive line is going to deteriorate. They can't hold blocks for 5, 6, 7 seconds in football. It's just, I don't want to say impossible, but it's very, very difficult for offensive lines to do that. So, when a quarterback holds the ball for 5, 6, 7 seconds, they're inviting pressure at that point. They're causing it. It's not an offensive lineman's problem at that point. Like he's doing what he can. And then on top of that, there's situations where Caleb breaks the pocket and runs around, which, if a defensive end sees Caleb Williams is rolling right outside away from the pocket, he's going to stop trying to go forward. And he's going to go to his left, which is, Caleb's right, to try to chase him. So that's just kind of what, him causing his own pressure is. But that all said, like, you hope you can fix some of the stuff that's happened with him. There is that red flag within the negatives. You can see it there. Like some people are going to have issues with his personality. His personality to me borders on, I say it down here. It toes the line between arrogance and confidence. It can rub people the wrong way. And I want to say Benjamin Albright, for all his shortcomings, he's also got a lot of sources and connections, and he does, report a lot of correct things. One of the things I saw him mention recently was there's not necessarily concern with teams about him getting in trouble off the field, but there is some concern with who he's surrounding himself with, who's in his ear and kind of influences him, whether that be his own father or friends or whatever. You don't want your franchise quarterback to be a guy that's inviting drama. So people love to give the Patrick Mahomes comparison for Caleb. I don't like that. I have gone through Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers is the one I've settled on, and I also thought of Jordan Love as well. Now, the key difference between Rodgers and Caleb and Mahomes is I don't think Caleb has the arm strength of Mahomes. I think Caleb's arm is nowhere near this incredible arm that people sell it as strength-wise. Like I think it's above average strength-wise, and it's
100%
rare.
agreed.
Yeah, it's rare elasticity-wise, and it's above average strength-wise, but I don't think it's like super strong.
It's a strong arm, but surprisingly doesn't have the zip that I thought he had.
Yeah.
And it's just because when I'm seeing all these highlight plays and all these crazy things, I'm like, oh, that's a strong arm. And he has a strong arm, don't get me wrong. You have to have a strong arm to throw the ball 35, 40 yards on a flick, with your hips not even pointing in the right direction, like a shortstop, like we said. But when you're watching it over and over again, that ball, like some other people in this class, doesn't have that zip where it just like pops out of his hand.
Caleb also does understand throwing with touch. Like he does throw with touch, and he does take some steam off the ball, which is a good thing.
He does. His deep ball is great.
There's guys like Anthony Richardson who I love. Needs to learn that still, and then like Mahomes, is able to do that. But Mahomes also can put a different level of velocity on there, and Josh Allen can too. And I don't think Caleb can get to that.
No, I don't either. Okay, we'll move up to the next one, like you see on the screen. Quarterback Drake Maye out of North Carolina. In that same recruiting class, he was the number 8 quarterback behind Caleb, but number 45 overall recruit. So big time recruit for North Carolina to get. They had a little bit of, ties to the family, so that might have done some things for them, or he would have been going elsewhere. Just a little bit, This past season, he did put up 3,600 yards with 24 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, added 449 yards and 9 touchdowns on the ground as well. So pretty impressive season for him. He's standing 6'4", 230-ish. Obviously, depending on where you're looking, we'll see we'll see at the combine. We'll see at the combine exactly how tall and big he is. But he'll be newly fresh 22. Right when week 1 happens. So it's always good to see a younger quarterback coming in. But the consensus number 2 overall quarterback of the class, possibly. Let me hear your thoughts on him.
I mean, I think it really depends on who you ask right now. It seems like there's a lot of traction for a different number 2 right now, but
that was new today.
Well, I mean, we'll get to that, but
Yeah.
Drake will, for most people, their mind goes to him being the number 2 quarterback. And there's been times where people kind of considered him the number 1.
Mhm.
Brugler at one point had Drake May at number 1. But for me, he is the number 2 currently. As you can see, I have a round 1 grade on him. It is a lower end round 1 grade. I mean, he's still going to be like top 20ish on my board easily, but um, not as high. He didn't grade as high as I thought he was. And there was points in time this year where I had him graded higher, definitely.
Yeah.
He's got crazy good arm strength. Like I think his arm stands out as much stronger than either guy we'll talk about today. Um,
Agree.
and he can put great velocity on it. His arm strength is like I said, it stretches the defense. The big thing with him is he's got some accuracy issues right now, and I don't think
Yep.
they should necessarily scare you off too much. I think they're correctable, but at the same time, it's not to the level of what I almost would want from a quarterback I want to take in like the top 2, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like he will hold on to the ball a little bit. He hesitates at times. That will pop up. But the big thing is like he's not opening his front foot consistently to accurately deliver the ball, and that's causing those misfires. And like that as a baseball guy, like
Yeah.
just
You're taught at 10 years old, 8 years old, your toe points to first base. Like what being in a middle infielder, like your
yeah,
toe has to point towards first base.
point towards your target, right?
Yeah.
But he's not open. Like he's pointing to the general direction, but he's not pointing to the right guy. That's part of like what's going on with him. His hips aren't getting to the right spot, and he's not transferring the weight all the way, and that's why you're seeing these misfires. So he opens up, and of course it skipped on me.
Yeah. Well, it's you can kind of see it's angled a little bit more towards the sideline.
Yeah, I mean, and his receiver ends up dying, or diving as
Yep.
the ball dies because he's throwing it, not to the right place, basically.
Well, when you're like both your hips are pointed towards your target, you're not going to be able to get that kind of arm strength on the ball. In football, like yeah, if you're going to completely open up your hips and you're at that point, your lower half is gone. Like you're not relying on it at all. It's just standing there, and you're only focusing on your arm. So I mean, he has crazy arm strength. He has noticeably more zip, in my opinion, than Caleb did. But even with that arm, if you're going to completely open up your hips, you still got to throw the ball 10, 15 yards. Like it's going to die on you.
So if you look at this one, this pass is to the inside guy, right? And if you look at this front foot, like just by drawing a line, it's not pointed at the right person.
Mm-hmm.
And you see the ball just
It goes towards the other guy.
yeah, like who knows? I might be wrong too. He might have been honestly trying to throw it to the outside receiver, but if he's doing that, then
That's a horrible pass to that guy.
yeah, it's a horrible pass either way, right?
Yeah.
So, it's in his base and his footwork. He's not getting his front foot opened all the way, and he's not transferring his weight to really, get the torque and drive for the throw. That's my take on it. I did not play quarterback growing up, so I might be wrong. But I mean, that's just what it looks like to me when I really like slow it down and look at it.
There are some accuracy issues, and some of it, like you put on your sheet, it's that gunslinger mentality where like I'm going to use the Aaron Rodgers from the previous comp, but like he thinks that he can fit it any window at any time, trying to drive a ball through a tight window. It's not sometimes going to be pretty. And I think some of that accuracy issues are he's trying to make throws that he just shouldn't be making, which I'll take the confidence all day long, but I don't want him to be just, slinging the ball into double coverage or into a tight window where it can be easily intercepted in the NFL. In college, you can get away with it, but in the NFL, you're probably not going to get away with it too much. But I did want to note a positive that I saw that I'm not sure if you saw, but I think my favorite thing of all about Drake Maye is going to be his deep ball accuracy on the boundary. I don't know if you have any clips like that, but there was time and time again with a receiver that I'm high on also, and he just drops it in a bucket right on the sideline, only where just that accuracy to keep it, keep the ball in bounds, and two, not undershoot your receiver and risk getting an interception is just, I think that's my favorite thing about Drake Maye is just that deep ball accuracy, especially, towards the boundary, because that thing just drops in a bucket straight into the receiver's hands time and time again. And when it doesn't drop in the receiver's hands, it's out of bounds. So it's a safe throw.
Yeah, I mean, like we were saying, like he has that gunslinger mentality, that confidence to take those deep shots, and he can put it in a bucket, like you said. The other big thing I wanted to point out that I did notice, and I love it, because I didn't necessarily notice it as much with some of these other guys, is that he will throw with anticipation, which, every quarterback does to a degree, but like it's not to the same quality, But like this, it's such a simple play, and it's not anything like crazy anticipation wise, but it's noticeable to me. So, he's taking the snap, he's throwing down here, right? This is going to go to the end zone. Watch this defender right here on the hash. As soon as he sees that guy's inching forward, and he knows his receiver's already is even right here. He's already halfway through his throw, right?
Yeah.
Because he knows he's going to have that hole to throw in for a touchdown. I mean, it's not. It's really small. It's not like anything crazy in terms of anticipation, but it's noticeable to me when I, go through and I see these games and I see guys. I don't want to like Caleb can throw with anticipation, but you see Caleb running around nonstop until a guy's wide open. Once again, this is not like a crazy anticipation throw or anything, but it's noticeable enough. He's already delivered this throw on the clip. You can see down low at the bottom of the screen, this receiver's not even fully broken on the route yet. And it's open purely because Drake threw it with anticipation. There's no chance that DB's making a play on that ball, no matter who it is there. Because the ball's thrown before the receiver even breaks back. And that kind of stuff is noticeable. Caleb doesn't part of Caleb's thing is USC was not a timing-based offense, which is a negative you got to recognize with Caleb Williams in general. He's not played in a timing-based offense. NFL teams, their offenses are predicated on timing a lot of times because of how high quality the athletes are. If you don't play with timing and anticipation in the NFL, a guy like Tariq Woolen, Jalen Ramsey, Jair Alexander, AJ Terrell, they're going to break on your throws fast, and they're going to pick it off.
Yeah, it's just an underrated thing that everyone knows that you need, but with quarterbacks that display that kind of timing anticipation in college, it's just a different level than hoping that they can, make that translate into the NFL if they don't really show it. In a sense, like Caleb Williams, I have no doubt in my mind Caleb Williams can do that.
Right.
But with lesser talented quarterbacks in the past that necessarily didn't show it and still got drafted where they got drafted, given the reins to an organization, and then it doesn't show up again. And it's like, you kind of like, okay, well, he was throwing for 3,500 yards a season, in college, but in the NFL, he can't even break 2,000. Has like 8 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, and you're sitting there like,
not naming any names, right?
Exactly. I didn't know if you were picking up what I was putting down, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. So just putting a bow, I guess, all around on Drake Maye. I went through also a bunch of different, comps for Drake Maye before I finally settled on Carson Wentz here. I at one point I saw the Herbert comps. I still see like how people can do that. The difference is Herbert's throwing mechanics were nowhere near this flawed. Like Herbert was special in college. His like this, I say this all the time. I do. You've heard me say it. The Stanford 2017 game or 2018 Stanford game from his junior season or sophomore season is the best quarterback tape I've ever seen from a college quarterback, period. Like, hands down. He throws into the tightest windows, like, purposely. It's not by accident. Like, he's thrown into the craziest windows there. Drake Maye has a lot of the same qualities as Herbert, but he's just not to the same level of polish. But if Jordan Love was another guy I thought of here too. But Carson Wentz, I get a lot of Drake Maye vibes, or Carson Wentz vibes when I watch Drake Maye. People kind of, and this isn't meant as like a negative to Drake Maye, because
I was going to ask, which like, Carson Wentz are we talking?
I'm talking about the Philadelphia Wentz that was a playmaker. He had that MVP level upside, but there was also some downside to him as well. Like, he didn't always play that level. But Carson Wentz, when he was in Philly, was very eerily similar to what you see with Drake Maye at UNC. Making kind of sidearm throws, pushing the ball deep. Had good arm strength, great arm strength, not like elite arm strength, but also he had some issues dealing with pressure. He had some footwork issues, mechanical shortcomings. But yeah, like, this is meant as the good Carson Wentz when I put this comparison, truthfully.
No, it makes sense. And we saw Carson Wentz might have won MVP if he didn't get hurt. And he could have led that team to a Super Bowl as well. We'll never know. And, we all know the story of Nick Foles, but that was his team.
Carson Wentz was being a great player.
Yeah, he was being who people thought he might be that season. Especially, he put it all together. Horrific injury, and then just hasn't been able to come back, except for that was at the week 17 game where he balled out for the Rams. But he'll never be that old Carson Wentz again.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely not. Carson Wentz is one of those what could have been type of players to me. Like, I don't just throw him in the bust category. Like, this guy was legitimately a good player until injuries wore him down and changed like how he played. Whether that's because he was, I don't want to say scared, like, that's not the right word, but like apprehensive, like never trusted his body the same way or anything, or whether that's just because he couldn't do what he was used to doing. But he was a legitimately good quarterback.
Yeah, no, I agree. But we will move on from Drake Maye and hit our final quarterback, reigning Heisman Trophy winner, LSU quarterback Jayden Daniels. He was the number 3 quarterback back in the 2019 recruiting class, number 50 overall. So pre-COVID, not many of those still remaining, but there's still some to be in college. He started his career over at Arizona State, where, I mean, let's be honest, he was turning heads. I mean, we were texting about it way back in the day too. Just clip after clip of just those deep balls and his legs, especially. He's like, who is this freshman? Like, he went to Arizona State, but like, he actually might be good. But he obviously wasn't going to get the exposure or the coaching needed to truly develop at Arizona State. So, he transferred to LSU, and, there's some controversy all around that in the locker room there. But that's a moot point at this point. In his Heisman season, he put up over 3,800 yards and 40 touchdowns with only 4 interceptions. Just absolutely insane, but added 900 yards and 11 touchdowns on the ground as well. That's just, Michael Vick video game numbers right there. He's 6'4", surprisingly, because to me he looks a little smaller, but he is 6'4", and 210. And he'll be, 23, almost turning 24 by, week 1 in the NFL season. So a little bit on the older side compared to our last 2 prospects, but this former top prospect took a little time to blossom. But he became a star this past season. So let me hear your outlooks on him.
Yeah, so I mean, taking some time to blossom, I think, is the first thing you want to like hit on, or first thing you think of, or I think of at least. The guy has played a lot of football at college level, and there is some questions that come with that. In my opinion, are you Joe Burrow, who took some time to put it together, in your elite at that point once you put it together, or are you Kenny Pickett, who, like, if we're being honest with ourselves, Kenny Pickett was just a guy that played a lot of football, and he was an old man beating up on like 18-year-olds. Like, I'm exaggerating when I say that, but like, you get what I mean. Where I say,
I do.
Yeah,
like, he played a lot. It wasn't just a guy who just stepped into a role, year 4, and then wanted to get some more tape on to go to the NFL and develop. But he was playing.
Yeah,
he was playing for a while. Like
Yeah,
Sam
Kenny
Hartman
was a
type.
5-year starter.
Yeah, like Sam
Like
Hartman. Like I've been playing, I've been starting in college football, for 5 years.
yeah,
I know what I'm doing.
yeah, exactly. And so, Kenny Pickett kind of benefited a lot from that like COVID eligibility year to get him that extra year where he was obviously like he had a great final season at Pitt and he got him drafted higher than it really should have.
Yeah.
But that question applies to Jayden Daniels too. Is he just a guy that developed late and like is putting it all together, or is he someone that just kind of benefited from that? And I think one thing to kind of point out, and that goes against my own point here, is that like he was good before his final season. Like his first 4 years starting at Arizona State and LSU, like he was a good quarterback. He was a draftable quarterback. Like but he wasn't the Heisman.
Yeah.
Which like I don't know what happened, what flipped the switch, and we've talked about it before. Like it's almost like something happened this year where his like he was told to use your legs more, and like it really actually finally hit home for him. Like, and that's what was the difference maker is that he's finally using his legs in the way that they should be used.
Yeah. No,
But
because he has the arm. He has a solid arm. It's obviously nothing overpowering. A little bit of accurate issues in my opinion as well. I wrote that like when he's like in a rhythm, like he can put the ball wherever
yes,
he wants. When everything works in front of him, then everything like he can dot it with the best of them. It's just
yeah,
whenever he drops back and like he gets that to that like first or second read and like it's not there, that's when things start to break down.
yeah,
There was a clip that I had. I think it was against Florida State. And I wish I had it on hand. It was like the perfect definition of exactly what you have written down. What I was just talking about. Like he sat back in the pocket. They weren't really rushing him because obviously they don't want to over pursue and let him break the pocket and run for a touchdown like he did actually in that game. But so they're playing a little bit back, and he's just sitting in the pocket for a good 3, 4, 5 seconds, just trying to find someone to throw it to. Wide open guy appears, and he just 3, 4 yards away from him, just nowhere close to him. And you're like, who is this guy? And like if that's the only clip you see, like this guy won Heisman. Like this, I could have made that pass. Our friends could have made that pass, but obviously we couldn't. And so literally the next play, drops back 2 seconds after he pivots, just guns it right over a linebacker's head to I don't remember who it was, but sure it was Brian Thomas or Malik Neighbors, just
probably, yeah.
running a little like slant route, like right through like zone coverage where like the linebacker was backing up and the safety was coming over the top, and he just darts it right in between them, catches it, nice little like 15, 20 yard gain. And I was like, when it's in rhythm and when he's like on, it's he can dot it. But it's just whenever the things aren't happening in front of him that he expected, that's when some of his accuracy issues came to play. And like, it's not like every single play. There was plenty of times where he's scrambling around and he tosses it downfield and it's a touchdown. Or there's other times where like he gets to like a second or third read, little pressure on him, and he still makes the throw. It's not every single time. It's just his accuracy issues, in my opinion, came to play when things weren't perfectly in rhythm for him.
Yeah, I'm definitely in agreement with you there. Like, it's definitely a when he's on type of thing. It's just he needs to be on. The thing with him though is that like besides that is 100% something to hit on. It's his arm is strong enough, I think, but it's not above average to me. It's average at best, in my opinion. We're at the 40-yard line. Like, he's throwing it from the 40-yard line. The line of scrimmage is the 50. And this ball dies at the 2015, I think it is. Yeah, that's the 15-yard line.
Yeah.
It dies opposite hash 15-yard line. So just by the numbers, that's like a 45-ish yard throw from where he threw it. And the ball completely died on him.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't, he was trying to throw and Neighbors ran the wrong route or something like that. Like, Neighbors was running a straight up go route. And, I have a clip here of a guy me and you know pretty well to compare this to. We know this guy well here. This is a
Yeah.
similar throw, similar distance. Like he's throwing it from the 40-ish, it
Mm-hmm.
looks like. And he's throwing opposite hash
Yep.
deep down the opposite side.
Right to the flat
Obviously,
line.
there's air to this, but like we know by now, Desmond Ritter is not in the upper echelon of arm strength in the NFL, and he's making this throw look, better than Jayden Daniels did on that throw. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Jayden obviously has some great throws on, if I pull up his highlights, but just in general, like you can see there's shortcomings in my opinion with his arm strength, just personally.
Yeah. No, there is. There definitely is. But to counter that, just you still can't put down what he did, on the field, what he's done
Oh, for
over
sure.
his career. Because, like, even with not a Drake May, not a Caleb Williams type arm, definitely not some other quarterbacks that I've fallen in love with already in this class. Like, he's on the weaker side of this class, but if you don't have that kind of strong arm, but you can rush the way he does, like it's okay. You're gonna be
Yeah.
just fine. Like if you just complete those passes. I mean, Lamar doesn't. I mean, Lamar has a strong arm. Don't get me wrong, but like
Lamar's got a great
yeah,
arm.
he has a great arm, but you see he doesn't necessarily need to use it that much. And that's what I'm getting at is like he's not reliant on using that, that strong, deep arm as much where, throwing a 20-yard, corner route to Mark Andrews. I mean, Jayden Daniels can do that. It's just
Yeah,
those deep balls that he used to throw to Hollywood and such, where he can't even do it right now because he has no good receivers that will do it. I mean, Zay Flowers isn't really a deep ball receiver; he's a yak receiver. So he hasn't, he's not consistently doing it anymore. But those deep balls to Hollywood that he kept dropping to say like Daniels can't do that. But what he can do is rush similar to Lamar and make those mid to short range passes like Lamar. And if you can build an offense around that, you have something here with Jayden Daniels.
yeah, and don't get me wrong. I'm not. I know I'm harping on the arm strength there for a minute, but like it is enough. It's not gonna like he's gonna come in and it's gonna be a noodle arm
No, yeah,
situation.
definitely not.
But talking about Lamar in the rushing, kind of is a great transition to my comparison for Jayden Daniels,
Yeah.
which was Robert Griffin III, another electric dual threat quarterback we saw come into the league and win the Heisman. Daniels has top end speed that is it is special. He was clocked at nearly 22 miles per hour this year, which is one of the highest. It was one of the highest speeds for ball carriers in college football. 21.8 miles per hour is like 4.4 speed. So he's going to run well if he even chooses to run. He may honestly skip it because he doesn't really need to.
Mm-hmm.
But that is also kind of just like Robert Griffin III. There's issues where he's taking hits he doesn't need to take. This clip I have pulled up, I'm going to start playing it. I was not even searching for this clip. This was just me pulling up games to watch. And like, this was a highlight reel they were showing like on the broadcast, just talking about him. Like this guy puts himself at risk too much as your quarterback. Like these hits, I don't want to see my quarterback taking at the next level. Someone's got to talk to him and get him to
that play always
himself.
makes me laugh because I had that written down as a clip as well, and it's like in that situation, in that exact play where he just jumps into the middle of the FSU line right there. There was actually there was a receiver running just like a drag, like maybe like a 10-yard drag right across the middle, who was 2 yards open. And he could have just tried to dump it off to him, and there was plenty of space where if he completes it in stride, like that's a touchdown. But instead, which we've talked about in the past as well, he just tucked in and ran. You can't do that if you're Anthony Richardson or Cam Newton, let alone if you're Jayden Daniels. So
I mean, Cam Newton did it and like succeeded a couple times, but like it started catching up with him.
Exactly, and we already see Anthony Richardson was out for the year.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't remember who I think it was maybe Deion Jones that Cam ran into like the season after his MVP year, and it hurt Cam. Cam got a concussion literally because like Deion hit him squared up. Like,
and let's be honest, Daniels isn't, he's not built like
No,
AR can do.
he's
Like
not.
he's not built for
He's
that.
built
And if they
closer to
can,
RG3
yeah,
than Cam and they are.
exactly. And if they can't handle those kind of hits, what makes Daniels think he can be able to handle those hits? And I don't think he
Yeah,
wants to necessarily do that. Like, don't get me wrong, he doesn't think that he could take on linebackers and safeties, especially at the next level. But you know, sometimes if that's your tendency to run into the middle of the defensive line and just jump, like that's hard to break. When you're in
right,
the moment, like you're not really thinking about it, you're just reacting, and hopefully he doesn't react like that at the next level because it could be bad.
right. And so, I pulled up this slide here of, similar stats. I pulled them for all the quarterbacks. A couple things I will note is that, you know, based on Sports Info Solutions data, like his on target percentage is one of the best in the classes, or in the class. It's, you know, almost 75%, 76% of on target throws, which is meaning that he's throwing the ball and it's hitting the receiver in stride. It's not like the receiver's having to adjust to catch the ball, or that the defender is, right there or anything like that. Like these are just perfect throws, basically. Um, the other thing I will point out, though, that kind of concerns me when seeing this is that he's it looks like there's, some shortcomings in the middle of the field in the intermediate range, which quarterbacks have to be able to succeed in at the next level. So that does kind of worry me to a degree. But overall, like passing wise, like the advanced stats look okay for the most part. But this is another thing that I did. And based on advanced stats that I could find, those are the most coverages, or the amount of times these coverages were ran in the NFL this year during the regular season. So a large portion of coverages that NFL quarterbacks saw this year were cover 3, cover 1, cover 4. By logic, NFL quarterbacks have to succeed against those coverages if that's what's happening the most, right? So I wanted to look and see how these guys did against each coverage this past season, and cover 3 being the most, one of the more important ones. Cover 3 is easy zones for defenses to read. Don't read too much into the red, I guess, because like it's just basically if you're third place, you're getting the red.
Yeah,
But um, you know, they're all kind of similar in the catchable percentage, so they're kind of putting the ball, in a good spot to where the receiver can catch it at least. But Daniels and is on a different level on target wise than Maye and Caleb were. And Caleb's EPA, which EPA is an advanced stat I'm not going to be able to explain the best verbally. So I suggest you Google the definition if you don't know. But basically, it boils everything down to a play-by-play basis, where when you make a decision, when a quarterback makes a decision, it's assigned a value based on if it is helping the team be put in a better position to score or hurting the team. So basically, higher EPA, the better. And you can see Caleb's is really lacking compared to Jayden and Maye against cover 3. Cover 1, which is for the most part just basic man coverage. Once again, Jayden's leading the pack there, while Caleb's in the middle, Maye's struggling. Now, this is crazy to me here, though.
yeah.
This
That's what I
really
was just
stood out.
laughing at.
Like, Drake Maye's EPA, not very good. Caleb's is negative as well. And then Jayden's, doing well. There is context that you can, apply to this, that, like, Drake Maye didn't play with as good of a receiver as Caleb did. Like, Drake Maye's best receiver was Tez Walker.
Yeah,
Caleb had a deep room. And then Jayden Daniels had
two
two
first
first
round
round picks.
picks. Yeah, exactly.
So there is some context there. Like, Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas are going to be able to beat man coverage a lot better than Tez Walker and
Insert
Brendan Rice.
second. Yeah,
But,
like it's
I mean, even going to cover 4, though, Jayden's still leading the pack. And then Caleb's EPA is really lacking compared to them. Everyone loves the context of like comparing old draft classes, right?
Yeah.
So I'll pull up my old grades, but I'm pretty sure, like off the top of my head, Jayden Daniels is above Will Levis for me, but he's going to be below Stroud, Young, and Richardson were. And then
I'd agree with that.
Caleb, to me, he's slightly higher than those three.
I would agree with that as well. I would have taken Caleb, 1.01 last year. So,
and then Drake Maye though, he's below right now, and don't put too much stock into these things right now, guys, because not done. But 4.82, 4.63, 4.58. I had Richardson at 4.74, Young at 4.7. Like Stroud, Richardson, and Young were all within, 0.5 of each other, 0.05 of each other. Maye's below those three to me. And then Jayden's after that, and then like Levis would have been after that.
Yeah.
So
I would say as prospects, like not, taking nothing to account of what they have done in the NFL, just this time last year as prospects, I think I'd agree with that. I would have put Caleb over all of them. I personally had, Stroud first, and then Bryce Young second, and Anthony Richardson third, and then I would still have that in that order, and then it would be Drake Maye and Jayden Daniels for me as well. So I'd agree with that.
Definitely were all his prospects.
I am excited, though, to continue to go into our a deep dive of this class. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are intriguing past these three guys. Everyone knows these three quarterbacks, and I think the real quarterback part of the draft starts next. I don't think anyone has anyone above those three quarterbacks unless they're trying to be a little hot takey. But there's a couple guys that maybe we'll see. But
I don't personally right now, but I do think I think the league circles will have Knicks higher than some.
I think people. Yeah. I think the league has Knicks higher than the consensus, like as far as like fans and everything as well. But we will definitely get to him next in our next episode, because we got three more quarterbacks coming for you next week, and I'm excited because again, those guys are going to be. It's more fun where it's like these are the the plain simple 1, 2, 3 in any order, and I want to get into the guys that like I might have at 7 or 8, and you have at 3 or 4, and I like getting into those where we can see the differences, because there's definitely at least one guy that I know I'm going to be higher on, and I think there's at least 1 or 2 guys that you're going to be higher on. So I'm excited to get into that. But we'll attack that in future episodes. Yeah, I know. I'll let you think about that one for the next couple weeks. But yeah, make sure to follow us on all social medias: YouTube, TikTok, X, Instagram at Empirical Scouting. And for Taylor, we'll see you next time. Peace.
1, 2.